everybody. Hi, John.
Hi there. How you doing?
Very well. And we're here today to talk about something very exciting, which is this. So we thought we'd make a quick video about style guides and about our style guide. And so, John, I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, so first of all, why don't you tell us briefly what is a style guide?
Well, the first time I came across a style guide was I was working on a series of course books many years ago, and a publisher gave me their style guide, and I'd never actually heard of it at that point, but it came from the publisher, and it was a list of things that I needed to know about language and the way they wanted me to word certain things in my writing. More broadly than that, of course, you can get style guides. I see lots of universities publish their own style guides. And when we were writing this book, we kind of researched different university style guides. It was interesting to see how they had differences of opinion, actually. But in general, the university style guide will include rules about language, use of commas, use of titles, use of subheadings. And then it also might cover how are you going to reference your reading, how are you going to write your sources. So they're very much tailored towards helping students who are going to write essays. And that's an important thing to note, that style guides generally, not one style guide won't cover all projects, because a style guide is written and targeting a particular area, a particular style. And that probably explains why we felt we wanted to write it.
So why in our context we talk about materials writers and we talk about professional materials writing and also in a broader sense any teacher who's creating materials for their classes, be it for English or other languages, etc. Why would a writer of materials need a style guide?
Well, for the basic rules, like when to use commas or when to use certain types of punctuation, you obviously want to present correct models to students. So your writing needs to reflect correctness and accuracy in the target language that you're teaching. This doesn't apply just to English. It could be any modern foreign language. The other thing I think is, and I think this is particularly true of projects where you've got more than one author, although you all bring your own personalities and your own experience, certain things about the writing needs to be consistent. I mean, consistency is a key word. Students want to see the certain things repeated. Like when you put an instruction for pair work in materials, you could write work in pairs, work with your partner in pairs, work with the person next to you. And the trouble is, if everybody is using different phrases to describe getting to pairs in the materials, it looks messy, it's inconsistent, and you're making things slightly more difficult than they need to be. And I think when you write your own material, it's good practice to develop that level of consistency so that your students, from like if you're writing worksheet after worksheet, week after week, that students get used to certain chunks of language, you know. But also, I think it's important to note the style guides evolve as well, because language evolves and not all rules are fixed and things change. And our choices about language can say a lot about our own perspectives or about who we're writing for. And we'll come on to that a bit later with some examples, particularly for language materials writers, how language is evolving. And when we were putting this book together, you know, we obviously got opinions from other writers, other teachers in English language teaching, and my gosh, did their opinions differ.
Yeah, that brings me on to my next question actually, because this style guide is a little bit different, I think, especially in the way that it was developed. So, would you like to tell people a little bit about that? How did you
Yeah,
develop this?
I mean, if people are familiar with our first book that we published, this was basically you and me, and we brainstormed everything we knew about writing and said, okay, we're going to write what we think is the A to Z on writing language learning materials. So the content was pretty fixed. When it came to this book, we sort of said to ourselves, okay, these are the things we think that should be in it. These are our opinions on what materials should have in them, but I wonder if everybody agrees. And as soon as we started looking at other style guides, and also we both have experience of seeing style guides from ELT publishers, we knew that there was differences of opinion. So how you address those differences of opinion is tricky. You have to make the decision, is the style guide going to say, this is how you should do it? Or is the style guide going to say, there are two or three different ways you could do this. Here are your options. Doesn't matter which one you choose, as long as you choose one of them and you stick to it through whatever the project is you're working on. So it meant the sort of ambiguity, and we all know language teachers don't like ambiguity really, and publishers definitely don't. They want to know on a project what is it we're going to do. So that was tricky, and it was interesting because we use LinkedIn to actually go out to people. If anybody's familiar with us writing ELT materials, we have something called the Wednesday post on LinkedIn, hence the title of the style guide. And we'll put a post out on a Wednesday, and we'll invite our followers and so on to comment. And I think one of the posts that we got more comments on than any other post I've ever asked about on our Wednesday post was, what do you think the difference is between using N dashes and M dashes? And you'd think that's pretty geeky stuff, but my gosh, did we get a wide variety of responses. And it's one of the entries in the book where I feel like I read so many different opinions on it. And so we got lots of input from people. And we also, what was different about this book was we invited readers to suggest what they would want in a style guide. And that probably doubled the length of the book from where we began, because people raised all sorts of issues they felt that things that we should have in there or things that we should address. So we
Yeah.
relied a lot on input from other people. And when we wrote our first draft of it, we knew the importance of getting an editor on it, but we actually invited editorial from people on LinkedIn just to download a free copy and have a look at it. And it kind of evolved editorially. And at the beginning, in the acknowledgements, there's a list of people who really devoted a lot of time to giving us editorial comment. And they will be getting a free copy back.
Yeah.
Because some of them went really above and beyond the call of what we were asking for, but it was fantastic. So it was an interesting way to develop the book. And in a sense, the book is still developing. I mean, we've got it in its paperback edition and as an ebook. But it's because we've self-published it, it makes it really easy to update, to add to it, to change it. And in the book, we invite readers to email in and say, hey, you've forgotten this, or maybe I don't fully agree with that entry because in my context, it might be this, this, and this. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll change the style guide, but in later editions, it might inform it or develop it. So it's an interesting way of developing a self-publishing book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite exciting getting all the feedback, and I know that I certainly learnt things myself that I hadn't known before, which was, I know I'm not suggesting that I knew everything about style, but having having received and read so many style guides from publishers, it was quite nice, actually, quite exciting to think, oh my gosh, I didn't know that before. That's new. So again, as with the A to Z, our first book, it's one of those books that they say write the book that you want to read, and
Mm.
it didn't exist before, so we've written it. So okay, can we get on to some of the practicality or the practical side of things? What kind of entries
What's in
will
it?
people find? What's in this book? Can you give us an overview?
Well, for example, I said that there were different things that you address in a style guide. So if you take an obvious one which has some sort of language rules, I mean, commas, for example, there's an entry on commas, and in general, the rules on commas are pretty fixed. So that would be a quick reference, and lots of people probably won't bother looking at it. But there may be something that comes up and thinks, actually, should I include a comma there? Then there's a category that's sort of quite subjective and requires you to make decisions from the outset, I think. There were things like we had one reader said you haven't addressed the issue of gender and pronouns, which was interesting to go off and get people's views on. And then there was the other question of sort of nomenclature. It's, do you, for example, if you're writing about the students, do you call them students? Do you call them learners? Do you call teachers educators? And again, our style guide doesn't say this is what you should do. It just lists all the options and what the tendencies are, and from what we can observe, what the majority is. And then the third category, it's sort of publisher stuff. It's the things that publishers need from writers. So if you're writing a course book for the first time, it's the stuff that people don't necessarily tell you, like how do you write a set of instructions for the illustrator? What is the correct way to set it out? Or if you're writing a script that's going to be recorded in a recording studio, how should you lay it out on the page? Or, oh, my other favorite one is WALs. Anybody who writes their own worksheets, if they wanted a gap in a text, they'll just do like 3 underlined or enough underlining so that the student can write their answer in the gap fill. If you write it in a book that's going to be published, the designer wants you to write WOL, so WOL, standing for write on line between square brackets. The publisher might have their own style guide, but at least our style guide makes you aware of the things that you're likely to come across.
Yeah, and maybe it makes you aware of things you might need to ask before you just launch into something if you haven't been sent a style guide, because you can save the editor a lot of work or yourself in the second draft. So brilliant. I think you've given a really good overview there of everything. So should we just show our copies of the book again? And it's available as an ebook, and it's available in print